Hello, happy Monday, everybody. It's Nick Meter. I'm finally live a little bit late. I meant to go on at 11 a.m. Eastern. I ran into a small amount of technical difficulties, so uh, I'll just pause for a second to make sure that this is actually running in the place that I mean for it to run and see if I can also share it in my group and a couple of other places. So this is a good opportunity to take a couple of deep breaths. Okay, I see it's on the BS Free Spirituality page. I'm sharing it in my group now. And then I'll post it on my personal page as well. Thank you for your patience. Okay, thanks for being here with me. This is part 1 of 5 in a series that I'm going to be doing this week. I call it Let's Talk Values. Basically, the idea is to explain a bit more about this project that I'm starting up, BS Free Spirituality. It's kind of a rebrand of Inner Waymark. That's still my company, but BS Free Spirituality is the new public face of it. And I'm aware that it's a kind of a polarizing term. There's something a little bit charged about it, and I also am aware that people don't know what my journey has been, what I've seen with my eyes in the world of spirituality that has led to the inspiration for where I'm taking my work now. So essentially, if you haven't heard of me before, I'm a transformational facilitator. I work with a lot of different systems for healing and self-development, ranging from embodied practices. I'm a yoga teacher. I work with different kinds of meditation traditions. I lead breath work. I lead ecstatic dance type events. And then I also combine those with more mental, psychological practices. So communication work, nonviolent communication is a huge one that I bring in, and assertiveness across the board, basically using words and communication to more effectively meet our needs to feel more fulfilled in life. And so these things weave back and forth, the embodied practices and the more mental, psychological ones. It's all part of the same flow, but and I hear that idea a lot of, the mind-body connection, but I think that there are some cutting edge ways of approaching and working with people where we can take signals and hints from our body and not only then optimize what's going on in our mind. That is a big part of it, working with our thought patterns, our self-talk, our belief systems, but also those signals from our body and deep meditative experiences can inform the direction that we're heading in our life, which was basically the idea for Inner Waymark, was finding those signposts within ourselves instead of looking to somebody else to do it. With BS Free Spirituality, my goal is to make these kind of introspective activities more accessible to more people. I think there are a lot of people in the world who, especially in the U.S., that's where I live, and so that's my deepest knowledge of the culture here. I think there are a lot of people who could benefit from an introspective practice, but are turned off for a variety of reasons. Either it comes off as airy, flowery, or it could be kind of dry or too structured. Like that, for me, I know that too much structure in meditative, introspective practice always got in the way of my being able to connect with my body and connect with my soul, really. So in what I do, there is an aspect of personalization of that same thing, of tapping people into their core so that they can check in throughout whatever activity they're doing and ask, what does this feel like in my body? Does this actually feel right for me, or is there some way, for instance, in a yoga flow, is there some way that I could adjust or spend a longer time in a certain position? What's shifting in my body as I'm actually doing these things. And then yeah, so that leads into the topic for today. But before I get into the main meat of this video, I want to give a little announcement, because I just released the details for the venue of the retreat, the week-long retreat that I will host in Thailand in March 2018. I'm really excited about this. It'll be a week-long, the 17th to 24th, at a beautiful venue called the Yoga House, which if you I'll put the link to that in the comments here shortly. But if you go to bsfreespirituality.com and click to the events page, then you'll find it that way. But it's called Adventure into the Tantric Unknown. It's going to be an immersion into all the different kinds of practices that I work with, the mind, body, spirit thing, and also suitable for beginners. So it's not an approach to Tantra that is purely about sex, which tends to be the stereotype. When you hear Tantra, that's in the US, in Western culture, that's what people tend to think about. And sexuality comes in for sure, but to me it's more broadly about how can we flush out old muscle memory, de-armor the body and our nervous system, really, to create a fresh start, or like just a cleansing that gives us more access to our life force, so we feel more at home in our body, more in touch with our power and energy and our voice, and from there then also getting that sense of direction, tapping into our inner intuition. What are we going to do then? What action can we take to make some change in our life, to feel more fulfillment, to have our unique impact in the world that only we as an individual can have? So if you're feeling called to Thailand at all, like I am, if you have a feeling that really diving in a safe and not pressured way, but if you have a feeling that going into that space for a week with a group of really dedicated seekers could be a benefit to you, then here the link is going in the comment box right now. Boom. So click through that link and you can get info about the Thailand retreat. Now, for this video, I want to talk about the first of 5 values that I have identified for BS-free spirituality. And I just want to say a word first, actually, about what the point is of identifying core values in a project like this. Thanks, Diana. Yeah, and you can also watch these after the fact. They'll be available on this page later on at any time. So I've been fortunate to be in 2 teaching environments where we went through exercises to identify what are our core values. These are principles that are important to us that can inform the decisions that we're making in our life, and really, get more clear about what we want to contribute to the world, what is meaningful to us, so to me, this actually complements that deeper intuitive way of tapping into direction. Then from there, that I think that can influence the ideas about our values, and to get them into really specific words that have a strong feeling or resonance for us can then be really, really helpful, not only to guide our decisions and our actions, but to communicate to other people what we're doing, what we're striving for, what our intentions are. So I did that first in my yoga teacher training last spring with the Kula Collective. So I wanted to give a shout out to them. Google, if you're thinking of doing a yoga teacher training, look up the Kula Collective. I highly recommend their programs. And also then this fall, I did the Sustainable Living Tour with Earth Journeys, another amazing program that was visiting eco centers and permaculture teaching facilities, places like that. And then in that we did the values exploration, and led that into entrepreneurial business development and lifestyle design, which is sort of how BS Free Spirituality happened. So I want to give a shout out to Earth Journeys as well. If that kind of exploration of eco centers and intentional community sounds like something that could benefit you, then definitely check that out. They've got that sustainable living tour once a year, every fall, and they've got other things going on too. So when I got down to it, starting to make this project a reality, 5 values really stuck out to me, and so I'll just name them all first. And today I'm just going to talk about the first one, but they are self-responsibility, determination, exploration, purpose, and expression. So the first one today is self-responsibility. You may have heard that term before, or maybe not. Maybe it brings up ideas for you without me even saying anything. To me, it means that ultimately we can only really know our own direct experience, and we can only know what's right for us as an individual at any given time. So it's up to us to look at our own inner processes and experience, our own mental, emotional, and physical experiences, and adjust in ways that can bring us a lighter, freer way of being, as well as create positive change in the world around us. So going from that, looking inside, and then moving to the external world, how can we have an impact? No one else can do this for us. And I think that pointing fingers, calling people out, and passing judgment actually adds to the problem. So in other words, how can we, instead of just complaining, instead of diagnosing somebody else or a big problem, a big issue in the world, how can we take some responsibility to find and implement actionable solutions? So this is also very influenced by what you might call the philosophy over at Earth Journeys, and they were in turn influenced by Joanna Macy, her work, the work that Reconnects, I think it was called. But yeah, the real takeaway from that was not to well, first of all, not to get hopeless and apathetic about things that are happening in the world, but to honor that we do have pain, if we have pain and sadness, and whatever from our personal experiences and the collective troubles that we see and hear about happening in the world, to acknowledge that, to really allow ourselves to fully feel it, but to not get stuck at that point, and especially to not get stuck in just complaining about things, whether it's on social media. I mean, so often it's hard to open Facebook these days without seeing somebody complaining about something, as if that would make them feel better. And I get that there can be something relieving in having a sense of shared experience with people, but what's that phrase, misery loves company. Like at some point it just becomes an echo chamber of complaining, and this actually brings our energy down, brings our level of hope down, I think. And so if we can end that cycle and start to shift our energy into what can we do? What can I do on a personal level? What can I do on the human scale? So in the context of BS Free Spirituality, I'm thinking about anything that has to do with self-development, with self-help, self-improvement, with healing, with therapeutic practices. So often we live in a world of experts and authorities, and there's a use for that. For instance, doctors do a lot of good in the world. I think it's safe to say that we need doctors, but at the same time, and I'll speak personally about this in a minute, but at the same time, there are a lot of people experiencing what are definitely health issues that can't be explained fully by Western medicine. So yeah, I'll just jump right into my own story. I have I've overcome chronic fatigue syndrome, basically, which is a mysterious illness that does not have a concrete medical explanation. But during the thick of it, for a good year and a half or so, I was on a constant search for answers. And at that time, I was so afraid. I was so afraid of it never ending. And it was also scary not having an explanation. So the tendency coming from an upbringing in the American culture is that there must be some pill that's going to make this go away, or there must be some medical professional who can cure me. That term, sticks out really. That thought of there being a cure or being saved, and so this could show up in a physical health context. It could also show up in more of a psychological context and in the context of mental health. And because even if somebody doesn't have a diagnosis of depression, for instance, there are a lot of people in the world who have a nagging feeling inside that something's just off, or they can't, or they're just not at a place that they want to be in their life, or something's missing. Something, maybe they don't even fully acknowledge it. Maybe they cover it up with thanks, Emily. Maybe they cover it up with television or alcohol or whatever. But I think it's a very common ailment in our culture for people to, just have a little nagging feeling like something's off. They're just not okay. And then if it gets more extreme, where somebody does feel really more severe depression, or the term existential dilemma comes to mind. So about 10 years ago, I had this feeling to an extreme, to just feeling like I had no idea what the point of my life was, or the point of life was. It just, it sounds kind of cliche and silly now at the point that I'm at with how far I've come, but for somebody who's in that place, it's completely real and inescapable. And so, it's a severe kind of depression, and it would be natural. I think it's natural in that kind of situation to want someone else to just make it go away. So, for instance, when I finally did start to look for healing therapeutic help or services, I went I went on a big quest, basically, and I went to find groups who seemed like they had some answers for me. And because I couldn't imagine that doing traditional talk therapy was going to make any difference for me, I wanted something more holistic, something that did provide some explanation for the crazy dreams that I was having for like a year, and the explanation for the things that were going on in my body too, the mysterious sensations and symptoms. So there was a time at the beginning of my search to kind of find the purpose of my life, basically, where I would encounter a leader, a spiritual leader, or a therapist, or sometimes there were people who claimed to be both or identified as both, and there was at least one time where I actually said to somebody that they saved me, and it's so strange to think back to that now, because that time the person didn't really respond, and I wasn't sure why at the time. I ended up having to sever my relationship with that figure for reasons that would be too complicated to explain on this video. But to contrast with that, I was lucky enough to find in the years after that a few teachers who, anytime I said anything like that, anytime I said anything that had the tone of implying that they saved me, or that I needed them to feel better, to get to the next step in my path of empowerment, these few teachers that I was lucky enough to find would basically just pass it back to me. Like, no, actually, uh, uh, you have done this for yourself. You know, you can, like, please give yourself credit for the action that you've taken, even to seek out the service that I'm offering. This is just a paraphrase of the way that they kind of gave me my power back. Because if I come in, when I came in and said, oh, you saved me, or oh, I needed you to save me, then I am leaving myself completely disempowered to do anything about my own situation. And so, like, thinking about it on the flip side, it could be very alluring for a leader to hear that, to just have their ego boosted, like, yes, I did save you, or yes, I'm an all-powerful healer or guru or wizard or something. But the really amazing teachers that I've encountered, and when I say teacher, I mean a mix of healer, facilitator, shaman, sort of. These are all people that I would say are in a mystery school kind of place. They're people who have studied different traditions and found the parallels between them, not just sticking to one specific system or expecting their clients or participants to take on one specific philosophy about the way that a human process of empowerment and transformation could occur. So this more mystery school approach of looking at every single individual as a unique being who has unique needs. And also the thing that tied them together was this belief that a healer doesn't actually heal people. A healer is present with somebody while they heal themselves or empower themselves or change their own life. It's not actually possible, for instance, for me as a facilitator, it's not possible for me to heal somebody or to cure somebody or to really make any lasting significant impact in a person's life. All I can do is ask important questions, is introduce powerful practices, and to help keep track and keep some structure, keep some encouragement for that person to start to step more into their own power, to reflect and notice what about these practices and ideas is working for me. What new insights am I getting about situations and challenges that are present in my life, and how can I develop more of this sense of being able to tap into my inner compass all the time, so that I don't need a teacher or guide there all the time. I remember in my own path, this was an important turning point when I finally got to a point where I just in my day-to-day life, I didn't have that nagging feeling like I needed to go talk to a therapist or to get advice about everything that I was going through. At some point, I fully started to integrate and internalize what those figures had been saying to me, that I was really doing this for myself, that I was capable of finding my own way, and ultimately that I could stand on my own and figure things out for myself. And I think that's the biggest turning point on the path of empowerment that I have experienced. So I want to pause and take a breath, make sure that I'm talking about all the things that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, to tie this back to the idea of self-responsibility and what this has to do with my project, BS Free Spirituality. The 5 values that I mentioned, self-responsibility, determination, exploration, purpose, expression, to me, these in a way convey a kind of journey. So self-responsibility to me is at the beginning of that journey. I think that there's something about this arc that relates to the journey that people can go through when they are making a significant change in their life in a sustainable way that will have a long-term effect, long-term transformation. Because I also hear a lot about like instant fixes, whether they call it a cure or what. The idea of instant fixes are very popular in our fast food kind of culture. The idea that we can just make a decision and then our life will be different. Yes, we need to make decisions, but we also need to take actions and keep track of what those actions, what effects are coming from those actions, and to adjust if something's not working. And it's things take time, and so yeah, I'll get more into that tomorrow probably. But this thing about self-responsibility, the other thing I wanted to mention about it is that it's probably related to if any of you you've probably heard of Burning Man. Maybe you haven't been to any Burning Man events, but there are 10 principles in the Burning Man culture that sort of give structure in a way to the culture there. It's something that at least ties together all the chaotic, creative mess mess and glory, whatever word you want to use. But one of the Burning Man principles is radical self-reliance. And so to me, that relates to this idea of self-responsibility. In a Burning Man experience, the idea is to come fully prepared to take care of yourself, so that basically, ideally, no matter what happens, you can get through it on your own. So this is about, in that context, it's about bringing the supplies that you need, food and water and medications and stuff like that. But then there's also an emotional, psychological, spiritual component of it, which is, to be able to rely on yourself. So one affirmation or mantra that has been really powerful for me is, no matter what happens, I can handle it. And that, to me, gets at really at the essence of what radical self-reliance was about in that Burning Man context, because shit happens. Pardon my French, but that's life. Things go wrong. Life throws curveballs at us, and right when we think that we have everything figured out, something new pops up in the mix, and it's going to be that way. So to be in touch with a sense. Yeah, to almost be like, in a way, affirmations to me are like positive brainwashing. It's like the more that we can tell ourselves that we can handle whatever comes up, that we can rely on ourselves, and that can include getting support. That can include asking for help. In fact, that's a big part of self-responsibility and self-reliance. But to expect other people to completely care for us, or to fix the things that are really deep that are missing really deep inside of us, or that feel off, it's just never going to bring us lasting satisfaction. So, and this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, is that each of us is a unique individual. None of us can ever know completely what another person's experience is from the outside. We only, from birth to death, we only are really in our own journey, our own perceptions, our own experiences. We're all the narrator of our own epic saga. So yeah, we are with ourselves at every second of our life, and it is possible to have connection, to have intimacy, to have some shared reality with other people, but ultimately we are the only ones who can make those big lasting changes in our lives. We are the only ones that can overcome the barriers that we put in front of ourselves, the fear and the limiting self-beliefs, and in our mind and in our body. We're the only ones that can identify the things that are blocking us from stepping more into our true potential, our empowerment, our liberation, and to living the life that some part of us knows we deserve, and that is our birthright, and that some part of, if we were totally honest with ourselves about what actually works for us, then we could just start living it step by step and stick with it, which is what I'll get into more in the next video about determination. But I'm gonna cut off here. This is gone a little bit longer than I was planning, but thank you for tuning in. This video will be available after the live ends, so feel free to watch it through. If you're just stepping in at the end, feel free to watch the whole thing. Feel free to share it on your page or tag some friends in the comments. You can also invite people to this page. If you haven't ever met me in person or been to one of my events, please go check out, or even if you have, please go check out bsfreespirituality.com. I'm putting up a lot of information about events, especially that Thailand retreat that I mentioned. I put the link there's a link in these comments to the page about the Thailand retreat coming in March. And then on the BS Free Spirituality website, there will also be coming some video courses, some PDF guides. There's going to be a lot in there about cacao. I've been leading some cacao. Well, I've been leading cacao ceremonies for a couple of years, but I'm also now starting to lead cacao classes, more about the tree to bar process of growing cacao and how it becomes something that we consume, whether as cacao nibs or chocolate or whatever. Yeah, so if you're not getting my emails yet, just head to bsfreespirituality.com. You can type in your email and stay up to date. Thank you for watching so much, and I will be back at 11 a.m. Eastern every day this week talking about one of the values on the project. Goodbye. Happy Monday.